Hi there. Something wrong with the elevator?
Film has been a huge part of my life, to say the least. As a kid, I grew up with classics like 1978's Superman with Christopher Reeve, fostering my love for comic book films at a young age.
Excuse me.
That's a bad outfit.
As I grew older, the Disney and Pixar animated classics soon became a very formative piece of my childhood, such as Toy Story.
Hey, Buzz! You're flying!
This isn't flying, this is falling with style.
To infinity and beyond!
And I couldn't possibly forget the legendary Harry Potter series that defined my childhood and to this day remains as one of my favorite book and movie series of all time.
Expecto Patronum!
Now, I could go on about the nostalgia and memories I had from watching movies back when growing up. There's just too many to choose from. But then, something changed. Recently, I found myself becoming more and more interested in movies until, suddenly, I was obsessed. Not just as entertainment, but as an art form. I'm not sure exactly what started it, but since then, I've been watching a broad range of films and spending time to learn more about them and cinema in general. Seeing the behind-the-scenes videos or hearing someone's thoughts about a movie always fascinates me. Movies like David Fincher's Seven or Richard Linklater's Before trilogy were films that I had never even heard of or thought I would ever watch, and yet I was impacted and found incredible meaning from them when I did. It's a passion that I'm so glad I've grown and will continue to nurture it as I grow older. But it started to make me wonder, why do we love movies? Is it the sheer entertainment and transportation from reality of a film, or the technical beauty, or the deeper messages that a story can convey? I've thought about this for a while, and I think all of those play a huge role in why we love film. But I think what is really engaging is that film shows us ourselves. Something I encountered during my thinking was a psychological theory known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This idea shows us this pyramid to describe human motivation. And while humans are complicated beings with many layers, I think this does a pretty good job at telling us a bit about who we are. And I think film exemplifies these ideas in depth and detail, which is why we love cinema so much. I won't break down every tier, but here's a few I've noticed. To this day, Castaway, directed by Robert Zemeckis, is one of my favorite movies. Not only is it propelled by Tom Hanks' incredible performance, but the musical score and memorable characters carry the film as well. It's a gripping story about a FedEx employee, Chuck Noland, and his struggle for survival after being stranded on a deserted island. This movie is a prime example of one of Maslow's tiers. The first one being physiological needs, which are the basic biological requirements for human survival, like food, water, shelter, and sleep, to name a few. Something else about this film is that while Chuck is on the island, there's no music. It's purely just humanity at its most vulnerable, and it creates a very authentic and realistic tone for the movie. It's one of the many things it does beautifully, conveying realism, especially in terms of his survival. These core needs are ultimately Chuck's first actions when on the island, whether it be his need for fluids from a coconut, making a fire for warmth, or fishing for food. If Chuck needs something, little else matters until he satisfies his need, which is one of the key aspects of Maslow's hierarchy. Lower needs must be attended to before higher needs. Mastering techniques, or seeking comfort in company, all of which comes later. The most important thing initially is survival, and that's one of the many great things that this movie does to show human motivation.
And I know what I have to do now. You gotta keep breathing. Because tomorrow the sun will rise. Who knows what the tide could bring?
A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski, is one of the most clever and well thought out movies I've ever seen. Its reliance on lack of dialogue, lack of sound, and purely visuals and uneasy tension throughout makes for an extraordinarily entertaining experience. And as we move up Maslow's pyramid, we find another tier in this movie: safety needs. Once the basic needs for survival are met in the physiological needs, that's when humans can start to focus on more complex needs. These safety needs involve the human desire for order, predictability, control, things to avoid harm. For the most part, people want security in their lives to ensure some sort of consistency. In the world of this film, all of that is gone. Mysterious creatures hunt by sound. Any noise at all could be your last. We follow a family who's established themselves well in this world and have settled on a widespread territory. As the movie shows us their lives, we get to see that almost everything they do revolves around their safety, mainly because their lives depend on it. Unlike many horror movies that I've seen, these characters are very smart in what they do, with things like walking on sand barefoot to avoid any crinkling leaves or rolling rocks, learning sign language to avoid speaking aloud, or only speaking when a louder sound drowns them out. One of the more intense sequences in the film is when Emily Blunt's character goes into labor, and viewers are treated with one of the most impressive parts of the whole movie. The brilliance of these characters truly shine, from their planned visual cues to signal what's to come, to the fireworks to drown her screams, which were foreshadowed when John Krasinski's character is teaching his son about louder sounds at the waterfall, or to the underground bunker and makeshift crib with oxygen to keep their newborn baby quiet during these times, which was also foreshadowed earlier on. While this is a more extreme case than what many might experience today, it still showcases how humans behave when motivated by their safety needs. I come back to Castaway, particularly this scene for the third tier, because the introduction of a certain character is truly one of the most touching and compelling parts about this movie and its characters. This third tier involves the belongingness and love needs. As the name suggests, we seek friendship, trust, and acceptance in times of isolation, much like the times we are currently living in today in 2020. As humans, we have a persistent social nature, and in times of pure and utter solitude, Chuck finds a friend. In an attempt to cast a fire, his desperation and hopelessness is what shows. He is alone, and will not be found anytime soon. We see many attempts at reaching out, like signaling for help, or trying to raft out to a faraway ship, only to fail and injure himself in the process. But it's after these attempts, and after a long and continued period of isolation, that he spontaneously decides, after some frustration, to make a friend for himself. Wilson the volleyball. The film grows this relationship over time, and soon, Chuck's conversations begin to become more complex when he starts to talk to Wilson as if he's responding to something that Wilson has said to him. As humans, we have a persistent social nature, and in times of pure and utter solitude, Chuck finds a friend. But there's more to this tier of motivation than just friendship.
Play a melancholy song.
When you know you're gonna die, it isn't easy.
Play a different melancholy song.
One of the most fascinating and touching films I've seen is Her, directed by Spike Jonze. In the near future, Joaquin Phoenix embodies the lonely Theodore Twombly as he slowly falls in love with a computer AI system whom he calls Samantha. This kind of belonging and love is more intimate than a friendship. Throughout the film, Theodore is struggling with his past after a divorce with the love of his life. He struggles to make new romantic relationships and has feelings of heartbreak and sadness. But when he finds comfort in Samantha, his world begins to change. This desire for acceptance among someone is filled, and he finds excitement in the world again. His outfit changes, the movie seems almost visually brighter, and he's happier. Theodore goes through a bit of a journey in this film, with all of his actions being driven by his belonging and love motivation. After meeting with his ex to finalize their divorce, she's quite disapproving of his new relationship, and after some time of questioning his feelings, he decides that Samantha is worth it, and that she satisfies that need of his. And even when Samantha is gone, and after her revelation, which comes almost like a betrayal, he's able to let go of both her and his ex-wife, and overcome his struggles, finding company in the end, which is exactly what he needed to be free.
But you know what? I can overthink everything and find a million ways to doubt myself. And since Charles left, I've been really thinking about that part of myself, and I just come to realize that we're only here briefly. And while I'm here, I want to allow myself joy. So fuck it.
I'll be home at 6 sharp. If you need anything, call.
Anything.
We love you, sweetie.
Me.
Call if you need us.
They bought it.
The classic and iconic adventure of Ferris Bueller's Day Off is one of my favorite comedies, and to this day, it's still talked about and referenced in pop culture as well for many of its most famous scenes and lines. But after a recent rewatch, my favorite scenes aren't the ones showcasing the crazy moments of Ferris and his perfect day off. It's the scenes with his friend Cameron that truly stick out to me. Cameron's journey in this movie showcases another tier of Maslow's hierarchy: esteem needs. These relate to esteem in oneself in terms of dignity, confidence, and independence, as well as looking for reputation and respect from others. Cameron goes through all of this. Throughout the movie, we see Cameron's hesitancy towards a lot of Ferris's ambitions for his grand plan. And during these fun scenes, we get brief moments where we learn that Cameron's not as cheery as Ferris is. He's got a bit of a nervous and dull outlook on life. And he's a bit submissive to others' needs and has pretty low confidence. And I truly believe that it's in the moment in the museum that I think Cameron begins to change. As he stares into this pointillism painting by George Seurat, I think he sees this girl close to her mother, symbolizing the love from a parent that he never got during his childhood. In this moment, he starts to change, and by the end, he has. In a powerful monologue, he finally stands up for himself, growing the confidence he never had, and he kicks and hits his father's car like it's a coming of age. He's finally living for himself. He learns to take a stand, and ultimately, he grows and motivates himself to focus on truly being free. It's a heavy and powerful moment placed in this comedy, but it's truly one of the greatest moments in the film, and does a great job of showcasing human motivation when it comes to esteem.
It is possible to stop Mr. Ferris Bueller, you know. No, I want it, I'm gonna take it. That's it. When Morris comes home, he and I'll just have a little chat. It's cool. No, it's gonna be good. Thanks anyway.
Damien Chazelle's Whiplash is praised for many things. Its brilliant directing, intense story, and top-notch acting, featuring one of J.K. Simmons' best performances of his career as the music conductor Terrence Fletcher. This story of Andrew Neiman, an aspiring drummer in his first year at music school, exemplifies one of the highest tiers of Maslow's hierarchy: self-actualization. This need is a bit different from others. Once the other needs have been met, we can now focus on our potential, pursuing talent, seeking personal growth, and reaching our peak. It's about one's desire to become the most they can be, and for Andrew, his goal is simple: to be one of the greats. This is one of the highest forms of human motivation according to Maslow, and we see that in Andrew, as he is willing to go to great lengths to fulfill his needs. From his intense practice that usually ends up in injury, or his unwavering determination to succeed, like when he gets into a car crash, then proceeds to still perform. And, in one of the most outstanding movie endings I've ever seen, Andrew gets another chance to show Fletcher what he's made of, and he hits it out of the park. Fletcher uses the performance as a way to enact revenge on Andrew for getting him fired, and has the band play a song that Andrew wasn't prepared for. After a moment of defeat, Andrew gets back up and decides to take matters into his own hands, bursting into Caravan and going on to play an extended drum solo as the song concludes. In a moment of pure approval between the two, they share a final glance, and Andrew nails the final note. This finale is what self-actualization is all about. Andrew's drive, Persistence and determination to be one of the great drummers is what motivated him to go above and beyond. And after hardship and struggle, it paid off. This peak experience is what Maslow's pyramid is building up to, and what can be described as one of the most personal and rewarding self-fulfillment for human beings, which is what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is all about. It's clear through all these films that movies showcase these human tendencies, these human characteristics that tell beautiful stories about us. But what does it truly build up to? Why are we so drawn to these stories? That's because movies show us who we are. They show us pieces of our lives, the emotions, the feelings, and the characters that mean so much to us. By telling these stories and bringing these parts of us to life right in front of us, it's like seeing everything you know from a different perspective, reliving your greatest and worst moments, but with fresh eyes, finding out more about the world and yourself, inspiring us and our daily lives, and really, just finding out more about what it means to be human, to be alive. And in my mind, that's the perfect reason for film to exist. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on the movies that I see, be sure to check out my Letterboxd account. It's where I consistently update when I see movies and what I thought about them too. So if you're interested in reviews or just seeing what I watch, be sure to check me out there. Otherwise, thank you again, and never stop watching movies.